Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television. Here on The Point of View, we pick the right topics, get the right guests, ask them the important questions about issues that matter to you. We're live and interactive on a very important show tonight. Well, tonight we're discussing two very important issues. We're looking specifically at the SIM card registration that the Ministry of Communication through the National Communication Authority is overseeing. And I have a guest from the NCA in studio. We're also looking broadly at government's digitalization agenda. And I have the man who runs the organization that sits at the center of that to talk to us about how far we've come, where else we have to go. It's going to be an exciting show. Well, because there's a social media, at least Facebook and WhatsApp problem, we'll be taking your comments on a normal text line or on Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, the hashtag is The Point of View. Send in your questions. My guests are very happy to answer. When we come back, I'll tell you who my guests are. Stay with us.
Mama Josie. Fe.
Different era, better result. Time has changed and time has brought Kel Chocolate Toothpaste, healthy gums, anti-cavity, fresher breath, and it whitens teeth. Kel Chocolate Toothpaste, Sankofa.
Yenchi, Kel Chocolate Toothpaste.
Happy smile.
Like to have Enterprise Life in your corner. They give solutions that make life easy every day. So now I can focus on my dreams.
Missing Oko to Kumbitibia, Enterprise Life, what wants to share more? I don't know. Yeah, who do you move?
Hey,
I shock you.
We've got life.
Dream big. Go on and dream big with us.
Dream big with us. Enterprise, your advantage.
Welcome back to The Point of View. So tonight is almost like a three-pointer. First, we have the Director for Consumer and Communication or Corporate Affairs at the National Communication Authority, Nana Difie-Bedu. She's in studio. Nana, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It must be busy times for you.
Very, extremely.
From now till end of March next year.
Yes.
Good luck. We'll talk about that. I also have joining me Professor Ken Atefa. He is the Executive Director of the National Identification Authority. He's also the Board Chairman of the Ghana Refugee Board. I'll come to him shortly because he's at a very important conference in Geneva, Switzerland, and he happens to be in the company of Mr. Emmanuel Paddy, Tete Paddy, who's the Executive Secretary of the Ghana Refugee Board. So quite obviously they are having deliberations at the UNHCR level. So we'll be dealing briefly with the issue of the Bujumbura matter before I come to Professor Atefa. So Mr. Paddy, thanks for joining us all the way from Geneva. Good evening.
Good evening and thank you for having me.
Sorry for keeping you awake because I know you are 2 hours ahead of us. You are at the UNHCR having a major meeting. Back home, there's a conversation about Liberians at the Bujumbura camp and the intention to move them. Have they been asking you how you are treating refugees in your country during your meetings in Geneva?
First of all, just a slight correction. Name is Tetepadi.
Tetepadi. Okay, I'm giving you Emmanuel. Sorry, Mr. Tetepadi. Thanks. So, have they been asking you about the Liberian situation in Ghana at this conference that you're at?
Well, it's in the news, so a lot of people are interested in what's happening.
So, what are we to understand by what's happening back at the central region? Is it a case of forceful eviction, or is this just people reclaiming their legitimate land and people who have overstayed their welcome making noise?
Well, it's a simple case of the owners of the land wanting to claim their land, and it happens that we still have a few refugees still staying on. It's a legitimate claim.
I see. So as we speak, we went there earlier today and we noticed that the people are still there. What's the plan? Are they going to be forcefully evicted, or you're going to advise them to leave?
Well, we have advised them. We've been advising them to leave for a number of years now. But the point is that government is sensitive to the plight of refugees. And so the actual demolition has been put on hold while we give them a little bit more time to find an alternative, make alternative arrangements for their shelter. But with respect to those who are refugees, there are just about a little over 400 refugees. For those ones, the Ghana Refugee Board has found alternative shelter for them, and they will be moved away from the place. But still, for the rest of the population, they still have a little bit of time to make alternative arrangements.
So this is really not as big as it sounds? Is it the media that's blowing it out of proportion, or is it because settlements and livelihoods are at stake? It's natural to expect the type of media attention is grabbed.
Well, yes. People are being asked, people who have lived in a place for decades are being asked to move. And so naturally, there will be a little bit of resistance because they've been there for so long. And I think that the interest is very much in order. If a lot of people are being asked to move from a place, naturally people will be interested and would like to know what is happening.
I see. All right. Thank you for talking to us. We appreciate your answers and we wish you good luck at the conference in Geneva.
Thank you.
We'll come back to Prof shortly. Let me come in studio and speak briefly to Nana Difie Bedu whilst we sort out a few technical issues. Nana, thank you for joining us. So this is another story that's quite big. 1st October, SIM registration begins. How different is this from what we did, I think, 2010, 2011-ish? Because we had done SIM registration before.
Yes. So as you rightly said, in 2010, 2011, there was a national SIM registration exercise, right? And come say some 10 years down the line, here we are doing another SIM registration exercise. But it's important to know that these are two completely different exercises, especially with regards to how the SIM registration, the SIM is actually going to be registered again. In 2010-2011, if you remember, the SIM regulations, that's the LI 2006, actually specified some national IDs that could be used for the SIM registration. This included the passports, the driver's license, the voter's ID card, and I think 2 other national ID documents. But, so the SIM registration went on. The point that was, or the gap that occurred then was that there was no verification. So someone could easily take another person's card, national ID card, and register a SIM in their name. And so we had this issue where we had agents actually pre-registering so many cards and selling these pre-registered cards to people who were then using it for fraudulent and then criminal activities. So this SIM registration process is going a step further than that. We are actually verifying that the national ID that you're using to register your SIM card is verified and that the SIM card is tied to a Ghana card. And again, after the SIM regulations that was passed in 2011, the following year was 2012. The national ID regulations was also passed, and it made the Ghana card the single ID for registration of SIM cards. So what we are seeking to do now is actually comply with the national ID regulations and make sure that we are able to verify people who are registering SIM cards. We don't want the repeat of the situation where we cannot actually trace people, criminals, you cannot trace people who have engaged in fraudulent activities, and make sure that every SIM card that is being used in Ghana is tied to the Ghana card.
So when this law was being passed, was it your insistence that we should use this card, or is it because of the issue of verification that made this card the only appropriate card? Actually,
this is a national identity regulations, is a legal framework from the national identity regulation. It doesn't come from the NCA. What the NCA is trying to do is to ensure compliance with this.
I see. So you've given yourself 6 months. Do you have an estimated number of people you're expecting to go through this process by the time we're done in March?
All right. Currently, and we have about 41 million mobile SIM cards in use. That's the statistics that we have from the mobile network providers, right? We don't know how many of these are pre-registered. We don't know how many of these are being used for fraudulent activities. So we actually cannot tell. But what we do know is that once we finish this registration exercise, we are pretty sure to get an accurate figure of actual SIMs that are used by individuals who can be verified by their Ghana cards.
We have about 15-point-something million people on the National Identity Register. So you can assume from face value that this is more than one SIM card per person.
Yes, more than one SIM card per person. We also have the concept or issue of multi-SIMing in Ghana, right? A lot of people have more than one SIM card for the different networks they use. So some people have a SIM card for network A, network B, network C. And yes, with the Internet of Things, connected devices and all that, people also have SIM cards for their MiFis, for their security cameras and devices that they use at home, in your trackers and all that. So any device that uses a mobile SIM card will have to be re-registered. We are looking, we think that we may probably get about roughly 5 or so SIM cards per person, but we cannot tell. It's also because of the pandemic. So we've also seen a growth in the use of SIM cards and then communication services.
We'll come back to this. Let me turn my attention to Professor Atefa briefly. Prof is joining us from Geneva, as I said. He doubles as both the Executive Director of the NIA and is also the Chairman of the Ghana Refugee Board, and is at Geneva for UNHCR business. But Prof, thank you so much for joining us. Good evening.
It's okay. Good evening.
So first and foremost, what is your mandate there? Mr. Paddy told us what he was doing. You are the board chairman of the Refugee Board, so I guess that means you have to be at the UNHCR for this important meeting.
Yes, Bernard, thank you very much. There is an annual executive committee meeting of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. And it's an extremely important high-level meeting of the UN system for the management of refugees worldwide. And it's been the practice that the Honorable Minister for the Interior, who is the minister responsible for the refugee system in Ghana, attends this meeting with UNHCR and with the Ghana Refugee Board, with the chairman and the executive secretary, to develop high-level policies and ensure the effective implementation for the worldwide movement to protect refugees and advance their circumstances and reduce the hardship that a lot of refugees go through worldwide.
This is, of course, an important meeting, because I was thinking that this is a very critical time for the digitalization agenda in Ghana. And I get the sense that the organization you head, the NIA, is at the center of this effort. Is that correct as a basis for starting this conversation, that the NIA's work is at the center of Ghana's digital drive?
It is correct to say that. I think the framers of our law envisaged a situation where Ghana would be, through the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization and all the other cognate institutions that work to ensure that the digital agenda of the state is properly achieved, that is made possible. And so we have the law that Madame just referred to, which is the NIA law that mandates or requires that, in order to access certain services, and there are about 17 mandatory uses of the Ghana card. There are 17 situations or circumstances under which you cannot access certain services that are customarily available to the public unless you produce Ghana card for verification. And so it sits in the center, and all of these other cognate institutions or sister institutions with an interest in the identity ecosystem are all interconnected with it. So I'm talking the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, the National Health Insurance Authority, the Ghana Revenue Authority, the Electoral Commission, the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority, Lands Commission, and on and on and on. There are so many other institutions that must, Births and Deaths Registry and the rest of them, that must provide a service. And of course, the banking sector and the telecommunications companies. All these institutions are called in the law user agencies. And the services that are provided by these user agencies are predicated on the production and verification of identity based on the Ghana card. So you are required to produce a Ghana card in order to register your SIM card, in order to register to be a voter, in order to acquire a passport, in order to acquire a driver's license, and to access banking services, and to buy or transfer title in land, and to have social security and deal in any kind of insurance, and to pay your taxes, among others.
Is the NIA card or is a national ID card the most prevalent of all the cards? Because you mentioned a few institutions. EC gives us the voter ID card. Some of us have driver's licenses. All of us ought to have birth certificates. Some of us have NHIA cards. You have about 15-point-something million people registered. So is your card the most prevalent?
Well, I believe so. At the moment, we have about 15.6 million people registered onto the National Identity Register. Less than 1.3 million of them do not actually possess the card. That is, their cards have either been printed but not issued to them, or about 100 and something thousand, I think 136,000 or so, have issues with their cards, either through double registration or some problem with their identity, maybe a conflict in their the date of birth, that maybe they registered during President Kufuor or President Mills or President Mahama's time much earlier, and there is a conflict between the date of birth they used at the time and now under President Kufuor, or they used a different name, and without having gone through Gazette notification, they have come to use a different name, and so there is a clash of identity. But apart from that, we have, so if you put that aside, we have about 15 million people, roughly, who have, who are on the register, and over 14 million of them actually have the Ghana card. Now, I do not know any other institution other than the Electoral Commission that has that many people on the register. Thankfully, because of the data harmonization and integration, we have moved the Ghana Revenue Authority from a paltry 750,000 or so people in the tax net to over 15.5 million at the moment. So in terms of that, there are other institutions that may have higher numbers or maybe more competitive, approaching higher numbers. SNIT, for example, has already crossed 14 million by virtue of the data harmonization and integration with NIA, and on and on. However, all of these user agencies that we mentioned earlier are sector-specific, they issue sector-specific ID cards. The driver's license is for validating a person's right to operate an automobile. It is not an a multi-purpose or all-purpose ID card. Its function is basically to say that you are properly certificated to operate a motor vehicle of a certain class. The passport is a document for travel. The voter ID card is a document validating your right to cast your vote, and on and on. So, and take the social security card, it's the same. Health insurance card, it is limited to accessing health services. The Ghana card sits in the center of this country as the primary source of truth in identity, so that there is just one card which constitutes the strongest measure of the identity claims of any person. So your name, Bernard Koku Avle, must be the same at DVLA as it is at the passport office and the National Health Insurance and the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, and of course at GRA, and wherever else you must establish your identity. To ensure that we are able to do this, we have a single source of truth, the Ghana card, and your identity claim is checked against it. So if you apply for any of these other ID cards or the services provided by any of those other entities, you are required by law to provide the Ghana card, which must be verified as proof of who you say you are, and the biometrics and all of that assist them in that process before the service is handed to you.
There are a couple of questions on this. I'll take a short break and come back to them. Some people would want to know whether the passport couldn't serve the purpose of identity in the sense of citizenship. And then the other issues of whether the 15 million covers 100% of the registrable population, so that when an important issue like the SIM registration is going on, oughtn't there be some sort of window to allow other forms of identification while we all get our cards? We'll come to those when we return. I still have my guest in studio, Nana Difie from NCA, and then Professor also joining us all the way from Geneva. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Point of View. Tonight, we're discussing the latest with the SIM card registration. My guest is Nana Difie Bedu Diufiasem. She's in charge of communications, Director for Communications and Corporate Affairs, NCA. Thank you for staying. We appreciate your time. We also have Professor Ken Ajimana Tefa. He's the Executive Director of the National Education Authority, which sits at the center of Ghana's digitalization drive. He's in Geneva for a conference. We're speaking to him. Let me continue with Prof. I'll come back to you, Nana. Prof, I just wanted to find out, in relation to the 15.6 million Ghanaians registered, do you perchance know what percentage of the registrable population of Ghana that is? And question 2, shouldn't somebody like me, who has a passport which identifies me as a Ghanaian, be able to use that to register my SIM while I wait to get my NIA card?
Well, so let me take the questions one after the other. The first one, what is the registrable population and what is the percentage that has been registered? The 15,663,585. What percentage of it, of the registrable population is that? First of all, by the data recently provided by the Statistical Service, Ghana's population is some 30.8 million or so. Mm-hmm. The NIA aims to register every Ghanaian from age 0 to infinity. So if you were to take it like that, then we are just about 50%. But when we set out, what we did was a mass registration. The law provides that there should be a mass registration exercise. After the mass registration, there should be permanent regional and district officers across the country to provide continuous registration services to the people of this country. So we conducted a mass registration exercise which aimed at the population aged 15 years and above, and we aimed at 80% of that population. Now, at the end of the day, we have actually registered 84.3% of the population aged 15 and above. So in that sense, we have exceeded the target that was set by the governing board of NIA. But it is also the case that of those aged 15 and above, there are still some who did not register, and they must be enabled to register. Then there are all those under 15 years in the country who have not been registered and who must be registered. Then there are all those Ghanaians in the diaspora who must be registered and have not been registered. So the strategy is we are opening 291 offices across the country. 16 of them will be regional offices. 275 of them will be district or municipal offices all over the country, so that those adults, and by that I mean those aged 15 and above, who could not register during the mass registration period, can go to these offices at their leisure, at their comfort, and register for the Ghana card. And then those who have lost their cards, those who have misplaced their cards, those who have corrections to make on their cards, can also go to these offices and access those kinds of services. Then the children or those under 15 years, we will go to the schools, to the kindergartens, to the birthing centers, hospitals and CHIP compounds, and wherever the younger Ghanaians are found, and register them. It was strategic that we elected to register the population 15 years and above. They would make the most use, the economic most use of the very high-powered dual interface smart card that we are giving to them. The children will be receiving a 2D barcode card, and so their use of it and in support of the economic activities of the nation would be minimal, and so a 2D barcode card will suffice. That is the strategy, and parents and teachers and the adult population that would have registered earlier would be able to assist in the registration of the children.
Okay.
And then we'll do the diasporan registration. So the mass registration was only a strategy designed by law to enable us to rapidly populate the database. That's what we have done. But going forward, the law requires, and the policy orientation is that these permanent offices be set up across the length and breadth of the country so that citizens can access the services of the National Identification Authority in their communities or localities. And so it was not intended to be an episode, mass registration, and everybody is registered.
Okay.
It is a continuous permanent service forever. And therefore, it answers the question, what proportion is that? Well, if you take the percentage, it is if you look at it in terms of percentages, then it is 84.3% of the registrable.
Okay. So let's assume the 16 point something percent that need to get the card before the 6-month window elapses, because I'm using the NCA SIM card registration as some sort of rubric to measure this. Do you feel you have enough resources, and looking at the timelines, if this 16% wanted to obtain their cards before March ending 2022 to enable them register their SIM cards, would you be able to register all these people?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, those who have not physically received their cards but have registered and been printed, have had their cards printed. If the telcos open a direct link to NIA, you do not need to have the physical card to even register. But even at the current arrangement that the telcos have, what arrangement is in place, all that people need to do is go to the NIA offices. They are yet to be opened. They'll be open later this month all over the country. Recruitment process is complete. the appointments will be made, and people will assume offices. The equipment were all taken to the offices in June, in fact, in May. And we tried to open in June. We have revitalized, retooled, and we are now back to start the operations of these offices later this month. The actual date will be announced. We just want to make sure that every nut and bolt is in place. And then people can go over there and register, because the bulk of the population has already been done. 16% is nothing. And the equipment is there, the personnel are available, and they're going to be there to do the work. And, those who have been registering at any of the 34 offices that NIA has co-located with the GRA, the Ghana Revenue Authority, and those who are going to the NIA head office for the Premium Registration Center. At the GRA offices, it is free. At NIA, it's a premium 250 cedis. But at all these places, the card issuance is instant. People are getting their cards instantly. And that is to say within 30 minutes, which is how the system was designed to operate. And so at the regional and district offices across the country, that is going to be the experience. So people will get their cards without any hassles at all.
Thank you for that. Just another clarification. Nana Diffie mentioned that the initial round of SIM card registrations did not require verification. So because of that, all kinds of cards were used. But because we want to verify the identities of the people who are going to be owning these SIM cards, we're using your system, which has biometric data. But my question is, will the telco have to make a payment? Or is it free? We just want to understand how. So if, let's say, Vodafone or MTN has Bernard Avle claims to own a SIM for and this is my card, how does the telco verify that this is actually Bernard Avle on the basis of what is on the card? And does that involve any payment?
Well, that question probably belongs to the telcos to answer, not NIA. NIA is there to make the service available. There are contractual obligations. This has been pursued under a public-private partnership agreement, and there is a revenue model that underpins it. And we have contractual relationship with the user agencies that are accessing the services of NIA. But how individuals who access the services of the user agencies pay for them, or how the user agencies pay for the services that they in turn get from NIA is a different question altogether. And I think that the best placed authority to answer that would be the telcos or their regulator.
So, but in terms of general usage by other agencies like SNIT, the DVLA and all these bodies, are there specific relationships and payments they have to make to you? I'm just trying to understand.
Yes. For example, there is, for each of these user agencies that I mentioned, there is an MOU that is governing the relationship, and there is a fee that they pay. And Parliament has passed a law, the Fees and Charges Act of 2019, that sets out the fees that each of these user agencies must pay for the services that they receive from NIA, for the data transfer or, for data verification. So it depends on the institution and the fee that Parliament has prescribed. Yes, but there is a fee that all of them are paid.
Let me read a couple of questions from the public to you, then I'll thank you, because I believe you have other things to do. So I'll read a few. Good evening, Bernard. This is from His Excellency. Kindly ask Prof and your in-studio guests. I registered for the Ghana card and was told I'll receive SMS to come pick it up at their office. Till date, I have not received the SMS. That's question one. Question two, please ask Prof when they are going to issue the cards. I registered over a year and a half ago, and I'm still yet to receive mine. And then there's a third one. I registered my... Okay, this is a SIM one. I'll come to Diffie on it. I wanted to deal with those two. There appears to be delays with people either getting their notification or getting their cards. What's your comment on that?
Yes, that is true. I indicated earlier that we have printed cards that we have not yet issued. And so that is, all those cards have been sent to the regions and districts where the applicants registered. And they are enjoined to await the announcement of the date later this month so that they can go to the communities, wherever you live, wherever you register. That's where your card is. Since June, the cards have been shipped to those communities. And so as soon as the offices are open, people can get their cards. The delay, those who have been expecting notice or a SIM message to go and get their cards. As I indicated earlier, some of those cards have not been printed because they've gone into what we call adjudication. That is to say, there are some questions that have to be cleared about identity, about date of conflicts in date of birth or in names and that sort of thing. Or in very, very rare circumstances, people looking so alike in both biometrics and their biographies coinciding, the same name, John Mensah or John Kofi Mensah, and there are other persons who have that, and their biometrics also tend to be so close that we need to investigate to make sure that we are not, as it were, duplicating the identity of persons or confusing. So that is the case. But I just want to assure the good people of this country, through your medium, that come later this month, when the offices are open, all those whose cards have no issues whatsoever, the cards are printed and are there.
Okay.
Those who have issues, they are being called. But it's a tedious process. We want to be sure that we get it right because, Bernard, we are creating a single source of truth. The law requires that the national identity database be credible, be reliable, and of course, that it be dependable for all the purposes. Look at the SIM card registration that is hinged on it. It is important that we get it right and not rushing to let you get a card simply because we want a good name. We want a good name. We also want a good, dependable national database. But you, Bernard, you asked a question earlier about why you can't use your passport. Yes. If I may, let me just read a little bit of what it is that we have formulated as a coherent response, just so that it is consistent across board when others are speaking to it. Beyond the fact that this is backed by law, the LI 2111 demands that it is Ghana card, but wherever identification is to be established, the Ghana card shall be required. That's law. And it is not passport. In order to get a passport itself, you must produce your Ghana card. Now, a passport is a primary document for establishing your citizenship and eligibility to travel across borders. But even so, you see visa requirements. There is a limit. And Bernard, during the mass registration, there were people who came to or who went to registration centers for Ghana passport, but were denied the right to register because upon interrogation, it was found that they were not Ghanaians. There are people who hold Ghana passports who are not Ghanaian. So it is prima facie proof of your citizenship, yes, but it can be found to, upon further investigation, if it is found to have been procured through fraud or improper means, you cannot rely on it. And because...
All right.
So that's the point. The Ghana card is a far superior index of your identity.
All right.
In that sense, than the passport, which is a far superior document for traveling than other ID cards, such as a driver's license, for example.
I thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I know it's quite late where you are, so I'll leave it here. Thank you, Professor Kenatifa. Safe flight back home. That was the CEO of the National Education Authority speaking to us from Geneva, where he's attending a conference. When we come back, we have lots of questions for you, which have been sent in on Twitter. Somehow, Facebook is not working and WhatsApp is not working, but I have lots of questions. So I'll come back to you when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. The point of view tonight is talking to Nana Diffie Bedu. She's the Head of Communications and Corporate Affairs Director, actually, at NCA. Earlier on, we had Professor Ken Atefa from the NIA. And Nana, there are quite a number of questions for you. Let me just read some, and hopefully you can answer. A couple of people want me to ask you to walk them through the star 404 hash process. As for starters, can you give us quickly the process to go through to do the registration?
Okay, so the first stage of the registration is the star 404 hash process, right? It's just some key steps that I'm going to walk people through. So you dial star 404 hash, and then you press send, and then you get a prompt to enter your Ghana card PIN. And note that it is important for people to enter the letters in front, the GHA. One of the issues we've been having is that people are actually just entering the figures without the letters. So it's important to enter both letters and the figures without the hyphens. Then you get another prompt to confirm the Ghana card PIN that you have entered. After that, you are required to enter your surname as shown on your Ghana card, and then your first name also as shown on your Ghana card. Then you get another prompt that asks you to enter your date of birth, which is DDMMYYY, just the date of birth, the month, and then the year. Then you are asked to confirm, enter your whether you're a female or you are male. And you just confirm the details. They pull everything out for you to look at it, and you confirm if everything is right. Now, we went through a lot of testing to make sure that the timing for this, you are not timed out when you are keying all this information in by USSD. And so you confirm. As soon as you confirm these details, you should get some information or a message from your service provider. That message should show you your name, and it should give you a unique code. That means that your card has been successfully been able to hit the NIA through the database, and then you are given a unique code. And then there's another line that shows BCAP, that's a biometric capture, and then but at this stage it will show no because you haven't done the biometric capture yet.
Which is the next stage.
Which is the next stage, yes.
Before we get to that next stage, here's a question. Bernard, according to the information, after entering your Ghana card details, you receive a unique code which you take to your service provider for your biometrics to be done. I have not received this unique code. What possibly could be wrong?
They should just hold on. People should also dial the star 400 hash. I hope people remember the star 400 hash. Remember when you want to check the status of your registration, you dial star 400 hash, and then it shows you the name of the person who owns the SIM, and then the ID that was used to register the SIM. Right? And it is the same short code that we are using for people to check the registration if you've been able to finish the registration process. So dial the star 400 hash and you should see these details. If you don't get these details, just hold on and call your service provider or call the NCA and we will get back to you.
Another question for you, Bernard. Why is it that after typing my card number, it tells me invalid? I called their number, it didn't go through, and also the WhatsApp number the provider hasn't been active since last week.
The number for the telco?
I don't know. I think the registration, there's some number that's been given. He also goes on to say the GHA has been provided already, so how do you add that to the number? You know, you said that when you are typing
it in.
Yes. This person is suggesting that the GHA already comes in the cursor.
I would love to know which network, because it only shows as a prompt GHA dash.
So you physically type in the GHA.
You physically type in the GHA and the figures there without the hyphens.
But if somebody gets an invalid card number when they type their number in, what possibly could be the problem?
It could be, remember that Prof. Atefa talked about the fact that some people have their names. There's a mismatch with regards to their names. So there could be a problem with their national ID card, and in which case they would have to go to the National ID Authority and check and make sure that the names are correct. Because if there's a mismatch between the names that you enter from what is on your Ghana card, you would have an invalid report. And also for some of those who have not got the feedback from the telco, it's just a matter of time. A lot of people are actually using the system, so they should just hold on and wait, and then the telco will give them the confirmation. But people should dial the star 400 hash just to see if they can get that feedback information.
Is there a phone number somebody can call if they are registering and having problems?
Yes, they can call their telcos on 100.
Their telco, not
their
you.
telco on 100, and then they can call the NCA on toll free 0800 110 622.
0800 110 622. Toll free means you don't charge them.
We don't charge them.
Another question: why should one go again to the telco to have their biometrics taken again? Are they not all on the Ghana card? Should the NIA not link all that for the telco, since it is the Ghana card being used as the form of identification? That's a good question.
Yes, I don't know if you remember, we talked about this earlier during the first part of the conversation, that somebody can easily take another person's NI card, Ghana card, and just do this star 400 and then link the Ghana card to a SIM card which does not belong to you. And so how do we know that this SIM card belongs to you, Bernard? We want to have you come in with your Ghana card. We do a likeness check and make sure that it is indeed Bernard's picture on the Ghana card, and then we take your biometrics as well. We do not want to go back to the previous era where we did not verify. You know, people are able
to registration and verification. So yes. The fact that someone is registered with a Ghana card number doesn't mean the card is theirs. It could be their brother's card.
It could be their brother's card, or they could just have swiped someone's card from somewhere and registered a SIM card to use for fraudulent or criminal activities. But we are adding a second layer to this. Think of it as a two-factor verification. Yes, So we just want to make sure that this person who used this SIM card, this Ghana card, to link the SIM card earlier on is the person who owns the Ghana card.
More questions. Adam said, Jay Bernard, please ask Nana, my Ghana card name is different because of marriage. Will the SIM card registration be a problem?
The SIM card registration should not be a problem if you use the same name on your Ghana card. However, if you want to make sure that you have changed your names and everything reflects accordingly, as the NIA requires, you have to change your name and do a gazette and then go to the NIA office where they change your card for you.
Stephen Yankee has a question that a lot of people have been asking. I have a SIM card that originally registered in another person's name. Could be a brother who's gone abroad or a spouse who's dead. But this is now my line. How do I register the SIM?
Yes, so it becomes what you call a pre-registered SIM because this is not registered in your name. So you actually have to call your service provider, or when you start, the service provider will say that this SIM card probably doesn't belong to you, and so you have to go through a certain process where they verify that you are indeed the owner of the SIM card and you'll be using the SIM card. Some service providers are actually making the consumers or the subscribers go through a certain set of security questions that will ask you details regarding the usage of your card to make sure. Some will also require you to submit some documentation to show that, yes, indeed, that you have been using this card over a period of time. There are times when people lose their loved ones, and because of continuation of maybe some kind of a business or social interactions, they want to use the deceased person's SIM card. In that case, you probably may even be asked by the service provider to even bring letters of administration, which will give you the right to be able to use that card. So it's not easy to, now it will not be easy for people to just swap cards and then change ownership of SIM cards. You would have to go through a lot of processes.
Bernard, can I use one Ghana card number to register 2 SIM cards?
Yes. Your Ghana card can be used to register 10 SIM cards in your name.
If you're a Ghanaian?
If you are a Ghanaian.
But if you're a foreigner?
If you're a foreigner, a Western foreigner, you can only register 3 SIM cards.
But still with a Ghana card?
No, if you're a visiting foreigner, you would have to use a passport or a travel document.
But what if you're a foreigner who's going to be staying here for like 3 years?
Yes, the law requires that if you are going to be here for more than 90 days, you should get a resident permit. And then you are also required to get a non-citizen Ghana card.
Which then you use?
Which then you can use to register. Solicitor
says it appears the telcos are doing the registration only at their regional offices. This will inconvenience most of our rural folk and a lot of those in the cities. They should devise easier means of getting us registered, perhaps through the agents at district levels.
Yes, the telcos are actually rolling out, and then I do know for a fact that they are training their agents, and then the agents will be going out to do the second stage at the agents level. You will not be required to actually visit the customer care unless you want to, once they roll out to the level of the agents.
This is still the point of view. We're talking to the Director for Communications and Corporate Affairs at the NCA. Thank you for your questions. Bernard, some people have raised, okay, this is all to Kenatifa, so let me just try and see if we can wrap this up. How do you, what's the period for phase 2? You're saying phase 1, We send our details into the system, and that's done. In your head, what's the timetable for phase 2?
Okay, the timetable for phase 2 will actually depend on how quick the telcos will roll out the training and then the devices for the phase 2 to their agents and then their customer care centers. I do know that some MNOs have actually started rolling out in Accra, and they will be going out to the other regions as well. I'm envisaging that from next week we will see a much quicker uptake with regards to the biometric registration. And probably from next week, the NCA will be sharing some data maybe twice or 3 times in a week to show the number of registrations, and people can...
So means phase 2, the telcos are the ones who get in touch with us?
Yes.
Okay. Phase 1, we fill...
Phase 1,
404
you send the information.
And then phase 2, the telco will send me a message and say, come to this particular place. Okay. But what about the corporate institutions who picked up their SIM cards for their operations? And what about cards, SIM cards that were procured by my company for me?
Okay. So for business registrations, right, there's no limits with regards to ownership of business SIMs because of the nature of some businesses for marketing, for sales, or depending on the kind of business that they are running, they may require definitely more than 10 SIM cards, hundreds or in the hundreds and all that. So for businesses, they are required to go through some due diligence process with their service provider. The service provider will ensure through the Registrar General's Department that this is a validly registered business in Ghana. And then, because of the requirement in the LI 2111 that says that every SIM card should be tied to a Ghana card, what is going to happen is that all the SIM cards that belong to the company will then be tied to a Ghana card of a listed director of the company. So that's how the business registration is going to be processed.
Thank you for this information. We appreciate your time that you took to speak to us. That's Nana Difie-Bedu, Director for Consumer and Corporate Affairs, NCA. Earlier on, we had Professor Kenneth Tefa, Executive Director of the NIA, Board Chairman of the Ghana Refugee Board. We also had the Executive Secretary of the Ghana Refugee Board, Tete Padi, joining us, both from Geneva, giving some quick thoughts about the Budumburiam situation. Prof. Tefa on Ghana's digitalization drive, and Nana Difie on the specific issue of the SIM card registration. It's on from now till end of March. Get your Ghana card. *404# is where you start from. If you have any problems, you can call your network provider on the number 100, or simply call the I'm looking for the number, toll free 0800 110 622. I'm sure we can get this done for Ghana. Thank you. Hope you enjoy the show. The Business Dashboard is next. Stay with CCTV. We'll be with you next time. Bye-bye.
The Point of View is brought to you by Cowbell Coffee. Cowbell Coffee. Taste it, love it. Kel Charcoal Toothpaste. Kel Charcoal. Happy smile. Enterprise Life. Enterprise. Your advantage. Bell Aqua Active. Bell Aqua Active. Stay true to originality.